Okay, so hear me out. If someone had told me that one day I'd be literally face down in a mud puddle in front of the most powerful being in the entire forest, I would have laughed until I choked. But here we are, and this is my life now. My name is Yuki. I'm 23, pale skin that turns tomato red for absolutely no reason, long brown hair that lives in a messy braid, and dark eyes that my grandma used to say looked like little blackberries. I wear this moss green cloak she left me, all worn out and full of pockets where I keep herbs, little stones, and honestly, breadcrumbs. I'm the village herb keeper, which sounds cool until you realize nobody else wanted the job. Like, literally nobody. I was the only one who signed up. My village sits right at the edge of an ancient forest. Massive pine trees covered in snow, standing like silent guards watching who comes and goes. Fog crawling between the trunks like it has a mind of its own. A river cutting through the middle that freezes along the edges in winter. Way too beautiful to be real. Way too dangerous to be romantic. Because behind those trees lives a wolf pack that is not your average pack. They're ruled by an alpha king. And when I say alpha king, I'm not talking about some oversized regular wolf. I'm talking about Kale, a hybrid. Half human, half wolf. In his human form, he looks about 28. Tall, shoulders broad like they were sculpted by someone who really understood anatomy. Tan skin crossed with scars like someone tried to draw a map on his face. Silver hair, short in the back and longer in the front, falling over amber eyes that literally glow in the dark. Like, actually glow. He wears light, dark leather armor with claw marks engraved on the chest, a gray cloak that drags on the ground, and boots that make zero noise when he walks. In his wolf form, he's massive. White as fresh snow, same scars marking his fur, and those amber eyes get even more intense. The kind of being you look at and think, okay, cool, I'm a speck of dust in the universe. And guess who developed a catastrophic crush on this man? Me, the official disaster of the village. It all started on a winter day when I went to collect roots near the North Slope. The slope everyone tells you not to go to. The slope with the danger sign. The slope I went to anyway because I'm stubborn and the best healing roots grow there. The ground gave out under my feet. Literally collapsed. I started sliding, the snow turned into a mini avalanche, and I was about to tumble down toward a very unglamorous death. Then a huge shadow grabbed me by the collar of my cloak, teeth firm but careful, like holding something fragile. When I stopped screaming and opened my eyes, I was dangling in the air from a white wolf the size of a horse, who set me down on the ground with absurd gentleness, and then just walked away. No drama. Didn't look back. Vanished into the fog like a ghost. And I just sat there in the snow, heart going 1,000 miles an hour, thinking, who are you, and why do I have butterflies in my stomach over a wolf? That was 3 months ago. Since then, my life has become a compilation of embarrassing moments that I cause myself, because I decided, in my infinite wisdom, that I needed to see the Alpha King again. I needed him to notice me. I needed him to know I exist. My first attempt was going to the border of his territory with a basket of medicinal herbs. You know, like a gift. I walked up to the tree line marked with ancient runes and yelled that I had medicine for any sick wolf. Who showed up was not the alpha. It was Suki, the lesser she-wolf of the pack. She's normal wolf-sized white fur with gray patches on her ears, pale blue eyes, and this way of looking at you that's basically your aunt judging your life choices. She sniffed my basket, looked at me with what I swear was pity, and turned around. Went back to the territory without taking anything. Humiliation level 1 unlocked. My second attempt was during the moon ceremony, a monthly ritual where the pack gathers in the sacred clearing and the village humans can watch from a distance. I got all dressed up, put on my clean cloak, did my hair properly, even put on berry lip stain I made myself. I climbed a rock for a better view and obviously slipped. Fell face first into the mud right as Kale, in his human form, was walking through the clearing. He stopped, looked at me, I was standing there, covered in mud from the waist down, berry stains smeared up to my ear. Our eyes met for exactly 2 seconds. Then he turned his face and kept walking. But I saw it. I swear I saw the corner of his mouth twitch. Almost a smile. Almost. Humiliation level 2 unlocked, but with a bonus interaction. After that, I completely lost it. I started making up ridiculous excuses to go to his fortress. It's this enormous cave at the base of the mountain, with stone columns covered in moss and carved runes. Blue flame torches light the way. I went anyway. One time I brought muscle pain ointment. Ryu, the pact's beta, met me at the entrance. Ryu, in human form, is this guy in his 30s. Fair skin, dark hair pulled back in a low ponytail, green eyes, and a permanent expression of someone trying very hard not to lose their patience. He took the ointment and politely asked me to leave. I did, but not before peeking down the stone corridor. I saw Kale sitting on a throne made of intertwined roots, reading a scroll. The blue light cast shadows across his face, and his scars seemed to glow. In the village, I was already a walking joke. Haruto, my only real friend, kept trying to make me stop. He's 25, sun-tanned skin, short, messy brown hair, honey-colored eyes, and a smile that comes easy. He works at the carpentry shop, always wearing a leather apron over simple linen shirts. He's known me since we were kids, so he's got the authority to say it. Yuki, for the love of everything sacred, stop chasing the Alpha King. You're gonna become a legend for the wrong reasons. I'd listen, agree, and the next day do something even more ridiculous. Like the time I challenged a young wolf from the pack to a duel at the border. Me, 5'3", with a little herb basket, against a wolf. The wolf, whose name I later learned was Tomo, was so confused he just sat down and stared at me like I was a hallucination. I stood there with my fists raised for like a solid minute before realizing how insane the whole scene was. I dropped my arms, mumbled sorry, and walked away. Behind me, I heard what sounded like a wolf laugh. Several wolves had been watching from the trees. And the alpha was there too. I only found out because Suki showed up at the village the next day. Came right to my herb cabin, that little wood and thatch shack at the forest edge where I dry plants and mix remedies. She stood at the door, giving me that silent judgment, then did something strange. She lowered her head and nudged something to my feet with her nose. It was a smooth, round stone with a rune carved into it. I recognized the symbol. My grandma had the same one in an old book. It was a protection rune. That changed everything, because protection runes aren't given to just anyone. They carry weight. They carry meaning. I went to my grandma's grave that night. It sits on a hill behind the village, under a huge oak that doesn't lose its leaves even in winter. I sat on the frozen grass and talked to her like I always do. Grandma, I'm messing up over and over, but something's happening that I don't understand. Why doesn't he send me away? Why did his wolf give me a rune? The wind blew and the oak leaves rustled. It wasn't an answer, but it calmed me down. The real answer came in a way I didn't expect. Ryu showed up in the village 3 days later, in human form, which was super rare. He came straight to my cabin. Knocked, walked in without waiting for an invite, and said with that serious face of his, "The Alpha wants to see you. Now." My brain short-circuited. My hands started sweating. I looked down at myself, covered in herb dust, hair a total mess, cloak stained with dye. Perfect. Just absolutely perfect. I followed Ryu through the forest to the cave fortress. This time, I actually went inside. The stone corridor was longer than I'd imagined, lit by blue flame torches that seemed alive. Runes glowed on the walls, pulsing like heartbeats. In the back, a massive chamber opened up with a ceiling lost in darkness. And there was Kale, human form, standing in the center of the chamber. Amber eyes locked on me from the moment I walked in. His gray cloak seemed to absorb the light. The scars on his face looked deeper up close. He was even more overwhelming from a few feet away, and I completely forgot how to breathe. "You are Himari's granddaughter," he said. It wasn't a question. I swallowed hard and nodded. My voice came out smaller than I wanted. He looked at me for what felt like forever. Then he reached out and asked to see my wrist. I held out my arm, confused, and when his fingers touched my skin, something glowed. A mark appeared on my wrist, bluish, shaped like a crescent moon surrounded by tiny runes. I'd never seen it before, or rather, it had never shown up before. "This is the pact seal," he said. "Your grandmother was the last human guardian of the agreement between our peoples, and you inherited it." I was like, "Wait, what? How?" He explained in few words, because apparently using more than 10 words at a time isn't his thing. Centuries ago, humans and wolves made a pact. The forest belongs to both peoples, but it needs a living link who carries the seal and maintains the balance. My grandma was that link. When she died, the seal went dormant. Until I started showing up at the border over and over, putting my energy near the territory, waking the mark without knowing it. So basically, all my ridiculous attempts to get attention weren't just ridiculous, they were magical, in a completely accidental way. Kale knew from the start. He felt the seal awakening. That's why he never kicked me out. That's why Suki gave me the rune. They'd been protecting me while I thought I was just making a fool of myself. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I went with stunned silence, which for me is a personal record. But things got serious fast. Because if the seal woke up, it means the border is weakening. And if the border weakens, the two natures of the forest, the human and the wild, go into conflict. The village hunters were already getting restless. Men like Daigo, the hunter's leader, a guy in his mid-40s, built like a wardrobe, weather-beaten skin, grizzled beard, small suspicious eyes, always with a bow on his back and knives on his belt. He turned fear into rage and had been rallying support to invade the Pact's territory. And now, with the mark on my wrist, I was living proof that someone from the village had a connection to the wolves. To Daigo, that made me a traitor. Haruto told me one night, sitting in my cabin looking worried, "Yuki, Daigo's calling you a witch, saying your grandma was a witch, that you're under some wolf spell. People are listening." I felt a chill in my stomach that had nothing to do with winter. I looked at the mark on my wrist, now permanently visible, glowing softly in the dark. I covered it with my sleeve and pretended everything was fine. It wasn't. Over the next few days, things escalated. I found my herb cabin tagged with red paint. The word "cursed" written on the door. My neighbors stopped greeting me. Even the baker who always gave me day-old bread started pretending I didn't exist. The only person still talking to me was Haruto, and even he was catching heat by association. One night before dawn, Suki appeared in my yard. Her blue eyes glowed in the darkness and she carried something in her mouth. A scroll, rolled and sealed with wax. The message was from Kyle. Few words, as always. "They're coming. Come to the forest." I looked at the sleeping village, that cluster of wood and stone houses buried in snow where I grew up, where my grandma taught me every herb, where I learned to love the stars, and now they wanted me gone. My throat tightened. I packed a few things into a bag, essential herbs, Grandma's book, Suki's rune, and I followed the wolf through the snow, every step taking me further from everything I knew. The forest at night is a different world. Pines towering like dark giants, snow swallowing every sound, moonlight casting shadows that seem to move on their own. Suki led the way, her white fur nearly invisible against the snow. I followed, stumbling, because walking through deep snow at night is not exactly my skill set. We reached the cave fortress and Kale was at the entrance, in his hybrid form. I'd never seen that before. Something between human and wolf, taller than normal, with claws, pointed ears, a silver tail, and amber eyes blazing with new intensity. White fur partially covered his arms and shoulders over the leather armor. Beautiful and terrifying at the same time. He looked at me and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Worry. The hunters are organizing, he said. Dago convinced half the village. They want to burn the forest to drive us out. Burn the forest. The ancient forest. The 1,000-year-old pines. The river springs. The entire ecosystem. My stomach dropped. And the seal? I asked, raising my wrist. Kale stepped closer and held my hand carefully. His claws were sharp, but the touch was gentle. If the seal completes itself, the border strengthens and the forest is protected. But for that, you have to accept. For real. Not by accident, not out of curiosity. By choice. I looked at him, at this impossible being who was two things at once and neither one completely. And I understood something about the two of us. I'd never fully belonged anywhere either. Not village, not forest, not fully a healer, not fully anything else. Maybe that's why I was always drawn to the border. To him. I accept, I said. And this time my voice didn't come out small. The next days were intense. Kale taught me about the pact, the runes, the balance. Ryu, who'd decided I was an unavoidable problem, helped with practical training. Suki became my shadow. The pack watched me with cautious curiosity. I'd be lying if I said I didn't have ridiculous moments there too. Like when I tried to howl with them on a full moon night and the sound that came out of me made a wolf pup cry in fear. Or when I slipped at the cave entrance and landed in a puddle of melted ice right in front of Kale. He looked at me and said, in that deep voice, "Do you do this on purpose?" I turned red up to my ears and he did that thing again. That almost smile that's more devastating than any full smile could ever be. Like, sir, you cannot do that to my heart. But the lightness didn't last. The hunters were coming. Haruto managed to send me a message through Suki. Dago gathered 40 men. Torches, bows, traps. They're coming on the next new moon. New moon meant total darkness. The wolves would have a sensory advantage, but the humans had fire. And fire in a dry winter forest was a death sentence for everything. I had to do something. I couldn't just wait and watch. The night before the new moon, I did the bravest and dumbest thing of my entire life. I went back to the village, alone, in the middle of the night. I snuck in through the back trail only Haruto and I knew, went to the central square, and climbed the old stone well with worn runes nobody could read anymore. And I waited for sunrise. When the village woke up and saw me there, chaos was immediate. Daigo came with his men, bow in hand, looking like he'd found the enemy at home. People crowded around, whispering, pointing, afraid. I took a deep breath. My hands were shaking, but I kept my voice steady. I raised my wrist and showed the glowing mark. And I talked. I told them everything. About my grandma, the pact, how the forest protects the village as much as the village depends on it. How burning those trees would mean burning their own source of water, medicine, and life. How the wolves never attacked the village in centuries. How fear was blinding us. Daigo laughed. Called it lies, witchcraft, madness. Raised his bow. I saw the arrowhead pointed at my chest and thought, well, at least this time I didn't fall in the mud. But before he released the string, the ground trembled. Softly at first, then harder. The runes on the well started glowing. Blue, just like my mark. The ground lit up with lines of light spreading like roots toward the forest, and from between the trees, in impossible silence, Kyle emerged. In his hybrid form, immense, silver, eyes like two moons. Behind him, the entire pack. Dozens of white and gray wolves, positioned between the trees like statues. Not growling, not attacking, just present. Dago stepped back. His men stepped back. The whole village stepped back. Except me, standing on the well, my mark blazing so bright it lit up my entire face. Kyle walked to the square. Every step made the ground pulse with blue light. He stopped beside me and looked at the village, then looked at me. And for the first time, it wasn't an almost smile. It was a full look, filled with something I didn't have words for. "The seal needs both sides," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Human and wolf. It's always been this way. Your grandmother knew. The village forgot." I finished without thinking. "But I'm here to remind you." I placed my hands on the runes of the well. The light exploded. It climbed through my hands, ran up my arms, spread across the square, and rushed toward the forest. The border rebuilt itself, stronger than ever. I felt the whole forest breathing through me, every tree, every root, every spring. And I felt the village too. Two worlds connected by the seal now pulsing in my chest like a second heartbeat. When the light settled, everything was different. Not magically different like a fairy tale. Different like people were in shock and Dago was sitting on the ground. Different like the snow around the square had melted in a perfect circle and green sprouts were pushing through the soil out of season. Different like Kale was holding my hand, and I hadn't even noticed when that happened. The days after were about rebuilding. Not easy, not quick. Daigo didn't become a good guy overnight. He went quiet and bitter but put down the weapons. Some villagers apologized. Others still gave me looks. The baker started giving me bread again without meeting my eyes. It was an imperfect start, and I decided imperfect was enough. Haruto came to visit me in the forest and was speechless when he saw the cave fortress inside. Even more speechless when Tomo, the young wolf I'd challenged to a duel, came and lay at his feet like a giant dog wanting pets. Haruto looked at me, looked at the wolf and said, "Your life is unreal, Yuki." I laughed. Because it was true. Now I live between both worlds. Some days in the village, tending herbs, treating the sick, maintaining bridges that still need mending. Other days in the forest with the pack, learning about the pact, the runes, this fragile and beautiful balance between different natures. And then there's Kale. That absurd being who won't say more than 5 sentences in a row and makes me forget how to breathe with a single look. One night, sitting at the cave entrance, full moon lighting up the snow and the pack sleeping inside, he told me the longest thing he's ever said at once. "I knew it was you from the day on the slope. The seal glowed when I caught you. I just didn't know if you'd stay." I laughed because my eyes were full of tears and laughing was easier. I told him, "I did the most embarrassing stuff in the universe just to get you to look at me. I don't think leaving was ever an option." He did that almost smile, then reached out and pulled me close. His gray cloak covered us both. The white fur on his hybrid arm was soft against my skin. I leaned my head on his shoulder and looked at the sky. The stars were shining like they were giving us a standing ovation. Suki appeared out of nowhere, like she always does, and lay at our feet with a satisfied sigh. Tomo came next and squeezed in beside her. Ryu appeared at the cave entrance, saw the whole scene, rolled his eyes and went back inside. And I stayed right there, between two worlds. With the mark glowing on my wrist, an impossible hybrid wolf beside me, and the absolute certainty that every single public humiliation was worth it. Every fall, every mud puddle, every ridiculous duel. Because in the end, the most embarrassing thing I ever did wasn't falling in the mud in front of the alpha or challenging a wolf to a fight. The most embarrassing and most beautiful thing I ever did was just being myself. Clumsy, loud, stubborn, ridiculous. And finding out that was exactly what the forest needed. Exactly what he needed. My grandma used to say that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's fear stumbling forward. I think she was talking about me. Literally stumbling. Always stumbling. But always forward. The snow keeps falling over the ancient forest. The pines still stand tall. The river keeps running. Now with banks where humans and wolves drink from the same side. And I'm still here, with my worn-out cloak, pockets full of herbs and crumbs, my crooked braid, and my glowing mark. The guardian of the pact. The girl who did the most embarrassing stuff just to get the Alpha King's attention. And found out he'd been paying attention the whole time.